welcome to Undaunted, breaking into the news, untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin.
Today's news captures the harrowing reality of a nation in turmoil, a land where governance has collapsed and its people are left navigating the wreckage of war, economic despair and social disintegration, from fatal kidnappings in the heart of Ambazonia to the silent death of its youth in foreign land. Its report echoes a single truth: the systemic failure of La République du Cameroon to govern Amazonia justly, humanely, or responsibly, because Amazonia is not its nation. Now, across different counties and borders, the consequences of this failure reverberate. The abduction and brutal killing of innocent cattle traders, the unresolved disappearance of journalists, and the rising number of exiles dying on treacherous migration paths are not isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of a deeper crisis of state violence, abandonment, and decay. Now, even on the international stage where Ambazonian voices strive to be heard, the politics of recognition and protection have become entangled in the global apathy towards La République's long-standing conflict. Recent developments such as the United States government's decision to end the temporary protected status for both Cameroons highlights the urgency for coherent action from all fronts, local, diaspora, and international. Now, today's news is not just a chronicle of tragedy. It is a call to reflection, a spotlight on the cost of inaction, the price of internal division, and the urgent need for clarity of vision in the Amazonian struggle. The stories ahead are stitched together by the shared pain of a people yearning for dignity, safety, and liberation. Let's head into the prime headlines to usher us to the rest of the news. And these are the prime headlines on Undaunted tonight. We see violence in Bamenda mid-war, with a bike rider gunned down in Mile 3, Bamenda, as well as journalists kidnapped by unidentified gunmen in Kedjom. Mbororo cattle traders brutally killed by unidentified kidnappers in Undu local government area after paying 2.2 million for ransom. Now, Amazonian engineer dies in Mexican forest chasing the United States dreams, fleeing La République's ruined land. We see TPS withdrawal deepens Amazonia despair. Ambazonian factions challenge to unite by Tigbor Nagy as the United States ends temporary protection status for those of Cameroonian origin. Now, Nigeria's very dark man arrested by EFCC granted administrative bail, as well as on the foreign scene, the Vatican conclave begins amid quiet campaigning for the papacy. And with that, we head into the full briefings of tonight. On the home front, we see Ayuba, who is a motorcycle rider from Nkambe, who has tragically been shot and killed on May 4, 2025 in Mile 3, Bamenda, by unidentified gunmen, a chilling reminder of the spiraling violence engulfing Amazonia amid its ongoing war of liberation. The streets of Bamenda were once again plunged into mourning following the senseless murder of Ayuba, a well-known motorcycle rider who had become a staple in his community for his helpful spirit and hard work. On the 9th of May 4th, unidentified gunmen approached and gunned him down in cold blood, vanishing immediately into the shadows of an already tense city. We see that Ayuba, who originally is from Nkambe, had made a name for himself not through wealth or status, but through kindness, consistency, and service to others. Locals describe him as cheerful and selfless, while someone who could always be relied on, as someone who could always be relied on. His loss has left quite a void in the hearts of many. Now, this tragic incident is just one of countless others that now define life in Bamenda. And across Ambazonia, the people live in constant fear, caught between a brutal military occupation and unpredictable acts of violence. The war that began as self-determination, a struggle for justice and self-determination, has now birthed a humanitarian crisis. We see that where ordinary citizens like Ayuba become victims of a broader political failure. No group at this point has claimed responsibility for the attack, and the motive remains unclear why this young, kind man was killed. But what is clear is the pattern. The ongoing war has allowed lawlessness to fester, and the lack of a political resolution continues to spill innocent blood. The community is crying out not only for justice for Ayuba, but for an end to the endless cycle of violence. They call on the international community to step in and pressure La République to cease its repressive military campaign and commit to genuine mediation. Ambazonians people deserve to reclaim their homeland from chaos and restore order, peace, and dignity. Well, until then, sadly, stories like Ayuba's continue to emerge. Names turned into hashtags, dreams cut short by bullets, and lives forgotten by those who have the power to stop the war but chose silence. The home front, we still see on the home front that Fred Vubam, a print journalist working for neighboring La République du Cameroon's Tribune, was kidnapped on May 4, 2025. In the Midland zone of Mbeseha, he was abducted by unidentified gunmen while returning home from Kedjom to Bambui, sparking renewed fears for press freedom and the safety of journalists in the region. On Sunday, May 4th, Fred Vubam was seized at mile 11 in Bambui while making his way home from Kedjom, his native village, with no group at the time had claimed responsibility, and his whereabouts remain unknown as of the time of this report. Vubam is widely known amongst his peers as a principled and committed journalist, friendly, ethical, and unafraid to ask the hard questions. His abductions has left colleagues across the press corps shaking as they grapple with yet another brutal reminder of the risks that come with holding power to account in this part of the world. Now, colonial authorities have remained silent, issuing no official statement, an eerie pattern that has followed countless similar disappearances in the past. What's even more disturbing is that this incident comes merely days after La République du Cameroon climbed 4 spots in the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, moving from 138 to 134 out of 180 countries. But then this numerical improvement offers little consolation in a country where press freedom is more myth than reality. Despite the rising ranking, Reporters Without Borders, RSF, continues to classify La République as hostile terrain for journalists. Arbitrary arrests, disappearances, censorship, and threats have long been tactics used to silence independent voices. Many journalists who dare to speak out against corruption, military abuses, or the Ambazonian crisis have either fled the country, gone into hiding, or, in the worst case, turned up dead. The names are etched in memory. Journalists like Samuel Wazizi, who died in military custody under mysterious circumstances, or Bibi Ngota, who perished in prison after investigating state corruption. Their stories never got the justice they deserved, and now Fred Vubam's case threatens to join that grim list unless ordered action is taken. This is not just about one man. It is about a sustained campaign of terror against the free press, a foundational pillar of any democracy and democratic society. The continued persecution of journalists within and around Ambazonia exposes the lie in La Republique's public relation narrative. It further proves that without international pressure and a mediated political solution, the violence will not only persist but escalate. The world must act by compelling La Republique to the mediation table so that Ambazonia's people and its truth tellers can live and work in safety. Until then, every reporter remains a potential target, and every silence, forced or fatal, leaves democracy even weaker. Still on the home front and about kidnapping, turn tales as two Mbororo cattle traders brutally killed by unidentified kidnappers in Unju local government area were said to have even paid a 2.2 million ransom before that. We see a wave of grief that has swept through the Mbororo community in Dongamatum County following the tragic deaths of two prominent cattle traders, Mr. Amadu Yerima and Mr. Adamu Omaro. Now, the victims were kidnapped by unidentified gunmen in Intaba, sub-village in the local government area, and later killed despite their families paying a ransom of 2.2 million francs CFAs. Now, the two traders were traveling from a cattle market in Fumbot in La Republique West region, where they were stopped and abducted by the armed men. Allegedly, the kidnappers collected a ransom from the families but proceeded to take the lives of the victims. This incident has sparked wide outrage and grief within the community, with many mourning the loss of this well-known businessman. There are concerns about the safety of lives and properties in the region, particularly given the ongoing war in Ambazonia, which has seen a series of kidnapping and killings. The crisis in Ambazonia has unfortunately created opportunities for some individuals to exploit the situation for personal gain, often through illicit means such as kidnapping. We see that it highlights the complexity of the conflict, where the suffering of innocent civilians is exacerbated by those seeking to profit from the chaos. Meanwhile, many are calling on La Republique to engage in genuine dialogue and not monologue to bring an end to the war. However, concerns remain about the willingness of the colonial regime to engage in meaningful talks. The continuation of violence and exploitation underscores the urgent need for a peaceful resolution to the war. The deaths of Amido Yerima from Binjeng village and Adamu Umaru from Sa village, both in Nkambe Central Local Government area, have highlighted the need for urgent actions to address the security challenges in the region. Oh, well, sadly, we would not be having Barrister Mbeseha tonight, but then we hope to dissect most of this report in our subsequent bulletins as we take a look yet again at the ongoing war in Ambazonia that has led a lot of youths to flee the country. We see the lifeless body of Fru Victor, who is a trained engineer from Nsongwa, Bamenda, lying in a lonely Mexican forest, a haunting symbol of the despair gripping Ambazonia under La Republique's failed rule. Fru Victor, who married in December 2018, had once held dreams of building a future in his homeland. But like many Ambazonian youths, he found himself trapped in the wreckage of a war-torn economy and a nation betrayed by colonial occupation. The escalating armed conflict in the Atlantic zone, coupled with the systematic collapse of infrastructure and job opportunities, left Victor with only one terrifying option: to flee. His journey towards the United States was supposed to be a lifeline. Instead, it became his grave. Fru Victor was not only the one who went through these. When he set out, he was not alone. Alongside other Amazonian migrants, he braved the treacherous paths through Latin America. But somewhere in a dense forest in Mexico, exhausted and unable to walk, Victor was left behind. For over 8 days, he fought for survival with no food or aid. In the end, we see the same hopelessness that forced him to leave home, claiming his life overseas. Fru Victor's story is not unique, is not isolated. It is the story of a generation of Amazonian youths whose future had been stolen, first by La Republique's neglect then by its bullets, and now by the silent forests and deserts that they die in while fleeing. Ambazonia today bears the scars of La Republic's decade-long plunder. Schools have become military camps, hospitals lack equipment, roads are impassable, farmlands are torched. Meanwhile, those who dare speak out are jailed, tortured, or disappeared. The war has become a tool for subjugation, and the economy, once driven by industrious men and women like Victor, have been left in ruins by colonial occupation. It is this desolation, this deliberate destruction of ambition and infrastructure that has forced the youth to flee. They are not chasing luxury. They are running from war, poverty, and a colonial regime that sees them as expendable. Yet the outside world often receives them with detention centers, deportation, and death. Through Victor's death is a chilling indictment of the global silence around the Ambazonian war. It is a call to conscience for the international community to compel La Republic to the mediation table so that Ambazonia may reclaim its sovereignty, rebuild her broken institutions, and restore dignity to a people. Until then, the forests and deserts continues to claim the bodies of those escaping a homeland held hostage by violence and corruption of a colonial regime. Talking about those traveling abroad for a better life and immigration, we see that Ambazonian faction has been challenged after the TPS, the temporary protected status, seems to have been removed. In a critical blow to thousands of Cameroonians, including displaced Ambazonians, the United States government has announced the end of temporary protected status for nationals from both Cameroons. A protective measure which allowed eligible Cameroonians to live and work in the United States legally due to the armed conflict and humanitarian crisis back at home will officially expire June 7, 2025. The development has triggered alarm and concern among the Ambazonian diaspora and rights advocates, as many who fled the conflict now face an uncertain and potentially dangerous return to a homeland still ravaged by war, repression, and economic collapse under the Francophone-led government of La République du Cameroon. Reacting to the decision, Tigbor Nagy, former United States Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, tweeted, "Cameroonians' temporary protected status TPS in the United States ends June 7th. On this issue, all Ambazonian faction leaders should unite if they want to try and extend it. They should engage United States officials together with all the hot-button global problems. Cameroon gets no attention." Now, while Nagy call for unity is seen as a rational and timely suggestion given the stakes, it also exposes the deep-seated fractures within the Ambazonian liberation movement. Now, the push for a unified effort to lobby the United States officials has been met with cautious skepticism by many observers and activists on the ground. Now, as one prominent voice in the movement, Dr. Tita bluntly responded to the idea of unity, replying, "Please go and try mixing water and oil together, and once you get a proper mixture, we will get all the so-called leaders of the Ambazonian struggle together." Now, you see, the sharp metaphor reflects the core dilemma of the Ambazonian struggle, the inability to forge genuine unity due to the infiltration of pro-La Republique sympathizers and opportunists within the leadership space of the Ambazonian struggle. Now, over the years, various factions have emerged, some driven by power and ego, others allegedly backed by or even collaborating with La Republique proxies to confuse, derail, or delay the liberation movement. Now, as a result of this, many genuine liberation actors argue that calls for unity without ideological clarity or commitment to full decolonization only serve to weaken the cause. While coordinated lobbying for an extension of the temporary protected status could potentially offer relief to those at risk of deportation, the moral and strategic question remains: can true liberation actors align with groups whose actions or affiliations betray the struggle's very goal? The expiration of TPS, therefore, not only threatens lives, but reopens the conversation about the cost of fragmentation in Ambazonia's leadership. At stake is not just a policy decision in Washington, but the fate of thousands who have already lost their homelands to war and now stand to lose their refuge. For many Ambazonians, especially those in exile, the challenge is twofold: surviving a hostile foreign policy shift and navigating a fractured movement that has yet to coalesce around a common and uncompromising goal: the total liberation of Ambazonia from colonial occupation. While still taking a look at Tigbor Nagy's comment and the reply, looking at the state of the war in Ambazonia, we get to see, interestingly, that Tigbor Nagy has been a staunch supporter of the Ambazonian struggle. Tigbor Nagy just last year, the same time, says, "I support the right of Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, to determine their own future since the Yaoundé regime ended the agreed-to federation against the people's wishes. They should be able to decide. So far, Yaoundé has done nothing real to address their grievances." So it is no news that Tigbor Nagy has been a staunch supporter of the self-determination of Ambazonia. But then there are other intricacies to look at when suggestions of unity come up, when he talks about suggestions of unity. As we've seen several times, the President Sako has mentioned time and time again, only unity of purpose is what is permissible when it comes to the struggle of Ambazonia. And with that, we'll call it a wrap on the news on the home front. But then before we go any further, we'll take a quick break and come back to the news around Africa. Stay tuned. On the African scene, we see the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have taken a significant step towards peace with the submission of a draft peace proposal aimed at ending the ongoing conflict in eastern Congo. The United States President Donald Trump's senior advisor for Africa and the Middle East, Masad Boulos, announced the receipt of the draft, calling it an important step towards achieving lasting peace in the region. The conflict in eastern Congo escalated earlier this year when Rwanda-backed M23 rebels seized key cities including Goma and Bukavu, resulting in approximately 3,000 to 7,000 deaths and displacing over 7 million people. The region is rich in critical minerals like cobalt, gold, and copper, making it a crucial area for investment. The peace proposal is seen as a pathway to unlock substantial Western investment in the region's mining sector. Rwanda's Foreign Minister Olivia Nduhungirehe stated that negotiations for a final peace agreement will continue later this month, with hopes that the presidents of Rwanda and Congo will sign the accord by mid-June at the White House, in the presence of President Trump and regional leaders. Now, before the accord can be signed, Rwanda and Congo must finalize bilateral economic agreements with Washington, paving the way for United States and Western companies to invest billions of dollars in Congolese mines and infrastructure projects. The hope is that all three agreements can be signed in about 2 months and on the same day at a ceremony attended by President Trump. We see that the United States-led initiative aims to end the decade-long conflict in the region, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio overseeing the negotiations. The United States' involvement is expected to bring stability and security to the region, unlocking investment opportunities and promoting economic growth. And now, before we leave the African scene, of course, Nigeria's very dark man arrested by Nigeria's EFCC, granted administrative bail. So the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has confirmed the arrest of Martins Innocent Otse, popularly known as Very Dark Man VDM, following multiple petitions alleging serious financial misconduct. According to the EFCC, VDM ignored several invitations sent to his known address and communication channels, prompting law enforcement action. Now let's go through details of the arrest. The EFCC received petitions detailing grave allegations of financial malfeasance, which warranted thorough investigations. Now, VDM was arrested after refusing to honor multiple invitations, and a valid remand order was obtained for his custody. The commission emphasized its lawful rights to detain suspects under investigation. Human rights lawyer Deji Adeyanju questioned the legality of the arrest, stating there is no official petition against VDM. Some Nigerians, including former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, have condemned the arrest, citing concerns about autocratic rule. VDM has been offered administrative bail and will be released once he fulfills the bail conditions. While the EFCC will continue its investigations and charges will be filed once the investigation is concluded. The Commission emphasized the need to be allowed to do its job without interference while appreciating the public's interest in its operations. We will bring you updates on this report on our subsequent bulletin, so do stay tuned for that. We'll head on to the news across the globe. From political tremors in Berlin to sacred deliberations in the heart of Vatican City and military alerts reaching deep into the Arabian Peninsula, the world is witnessing a confluence of significant shifts across continents. Now, while diverse in nature, each of these developments holds the potential to alter trajectories in governance, religious leadership, and regional security. In a move that signals a more aggressive shift in immigration enforcement, the Trump administration has invoked the historically controversial Alien Enemies Act to justify detaining and potentially deporting Venezuelan nationals in the United States, especially those it believes are connected to transnational criminal organizations such as Tren de Aragua. Now, during a federal court hearing in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Justice Department lawyer Michael Velchik refused to confirm whether an identified detainee's status might change, leaving the door open for expedited transfer or deportation without traditional legal protections. The Trump administration's tactic may appeal to its base by reinforcing its tough on crime and anti-gang stance, especially with elections looming. However, it also risks alienating moderate voters and intensifying legal scrutiny from civil liberties groups, potentially creating a new judicial front against the administration. Linking Venezuelan migrants to Tren de Aragua, a growing transnational gang, may prompt regional collaboration or backlash, particularly from countries dealing with similar gang-related migration issues. Now, El Salvador's role as a receiving country for deportees to CICOT could also complicate the United States-Salvadoran relations, especially if allegations of torture or unlawful detention arise. Now, overall, the use of wartime legal tools in immigration enforcement marks a new and potentially precedent-setting chapter in the United States policy. While framed as a matter of national security, the Trump administration's reliance on emergency powers in civilian immigration contexts raises profound questions about civil liberties, human rights, and executive authorities. Well, away from the United States, Friedrich Merz becomes German Chancellor amid political volatility. Friedrich Merz has officially been voted in as Chancellor of Germany, succeeding at his second attempt within the same parliamentary session. Now, this dramatic reversal followed an earlier and unprecedented defeat in the Bundestag, revealing a divided political landscape and raising questions about the stability of the governing coalition. Merz's victory, though hard-won, signals a recalibration within Germany's conservative political bloc. Now, if his leadership consolidates over the coming months, Germany may see a return to more fiscally conservative policies and a stricter approach to the European Union's financial integration. A Merz-led Germany could alter Berlin's stance on migration, energy policy, and its role within the European Union, potentially influencing a broader shift towards conservative governance across the continent. Now, with growing frictions between global powers, Merz's foreign policy direction, particularly regarding NATO, relations with China, and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, will be closely monitored. The Vatican conclave begins amid quiet campaigning for the papacy is still on the news as 133 cardinals enters the Sistine Chapel to elect a new pope following the death of Pope Francis. Speculations and subtle influence have taken center stage. Reports confirm that the cardinals received a book profiling their peers, an indirect but powerful means of shaping votes before the doors closed. The direction the conclave takes may reflect either a desire for continuity with Pope Francis's progressive vision or a return to more traditionalist stance. The choice could significantly influence global Catholic engagement on issues such as the LGBTQ rights, interfaith dialogue, and climate change. The papacy remains a moral compass in global diplomacy. The new pope's background and doctrinal priorities may affect the church's relations with authoritarian regimes, its stance on migration, and its role in global conflict zones. Now, with global secularization on the rise, the selection of a charismatic, unified figure may be key to revitalizing youth participation and restoring faith in the institution amid ongoing clerical abuse scandals. Onto Israel. We see Israel issuing unprecedented evacuation warning for Yemen Sanaa's airport. In a rare and striking development, Israel's military has issued this evacuation warning for Sanaa's international airport, deep within Yemeni territory. This marks the first such public advisory by the Israel Defense Force, the IDF, concerning Yemen, and comes amid mounting tensions in the broader Middle East. Now, this warning suggests either actionable intelligence of a threat emanating from Yemen or an intention to expand Israel's strategic perimeter. Now, such a move could further complicate regional alliances and entangle more actors in the ongoing shadow conflict involving Iran, Houthi forces, and Western allies. Now, any military activity near civilian infrastructure like airports risk exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in Yemen, already one of the world's worst. Now, aid operations and civilian evacuation could be disrupted, worsening conditions on the ground. This development may draw increased scrutiny from the United Nations and Arab League, potentially leading to new diplomatic efforts or retaliatory positioning by Houthi factions or their regional backers. This event reflects a world at a crossroad, political reshuffling in one of Europe's strongest economies, a spiritual vacuum awaiting new directions in the Catholic Church, and the creeping expansion of military, posturing into new territories. While each development on the global scene is rooted in its own context, they collectively highlight the fragility and interconnectivity of governance, belief systems, and geopolitical maneuvering in the modern era. What lies ahead depends on the decisions made behind closed doors, whether in parliament chambers, holy sanctuaries, or military command rooms. And with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at the recap. Undaunted tonight, we saw violence in Bamenda amid the ongoing war, with a bike rider gunned down in Mile 3, Bamenda, as well as journalists being kidnapped by unidentified gunmen in Kedjom. 2 Mbororo cattle traders brutally killed by unidentified kidnappers in Undu local government area, even after paying 2.2 million franc CFAs for ransom. Ambazonian engineers dies in Mexican forest chasing United States dreams, fleeing the wars on the homeland and the dilapidated economy. Well, we see the temporary protected status withdrawal deepening Ambazonian despair, with Tigbor Nagy calling for unity. Ambazonian factions challenge to unite with the United States and ending the temporary protected status. On the African scene, Nigeria's very dark man arrested by EFCC and granted administrative bails. On the global scene, the Vatican conclave begins amid quiet campaigning for the papacy. And with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of my co-anchors and the entire Undaunted, we'll say thank you for tuning in. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. God bless you.